Is Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 5. You can text us 53106. You can tweet us at Off the Ball. This is our Saturday panel. Review of the sporting week between now and about 2:35. Delighted to be joined by the broadcaster and accredited sports psychologist Meara Treasa and the former Dublin football boss Pillar Caffrey. Meara Treasa and Pillar, how are we getting on?
Great. I'm knee deep in snow here.
Sure, look. And you're wearing white as well, MT.
Oh, well, look, the winter theme,
Very good. And Pillar, you're also wearing white for anybody watching.
Yeah, I'm knee deep in sunshine here over in Spain, so slightly different from Meara.
Pillar,
God,
you're always in the sun. You're always in the sun, Pillar.
yeah. Retired man now, John.
You're a Spanish correspondent. Unbelievable stuff. So are you able to see now the Dubs and Mayo later? Or you got some kind of streams or what?
Yeah, no. Look, I'll be looking forward to watching the Dublin ladies take on Cork first, and. No, I'll be able to get all the channels over here, so no, to keep on top of things. And look, we're very thankful to TG for the last number of weekends as well. Like, we've been spoiled with our club games also. So it's been great viewing. And look, the National League is hugely important. All these teams now, and the quality of the games are fantastic, and huge interest in them. And with the early championship, it's just making it all for a very exciting, tighter season.
Meara Treasa, we need to fast forward 20 years and retire and go to the sun.
Oh God, yeah. That he's just making a very great case. Can you imagine out in Spain, sunshine, wearing white, watching TG CAD? That's heaven.
Big time. Big time. You can listen on News Talk, folks. There's also watch us on the digital and social channels for Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitter as well. I was just thinking to myself over the week, Harry Ruddle, that goal was the biggest moment of the sporting year so far. I wish there was more than 17,000 people at the club finals last weekend. I think there's a bit of flux with COVID and everything and calendars, and I can understand all that. But maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, whether it's Bridget's Day or that we set aside a day for this, like we did with Patrick's Day, and make this a celebration of our parishes and our communities and our clubs, because I would have been pretty cynical about it in the last few years. I don't like the fact that the All-Irelands are over in July. In Gaelic games, I think they're clearing the field for rugby and soccer to get the promotional attention, because I do believe when you have 1 million people watching All-Ireland finals and 82,000 people at Croke Park, and you could fill it twice over at times for All-Ireland finals, that is the promotional juice for the game, which gets people involved at all ages playing. You both are involved in Gaelic sport, but I do think that we do need to almost just kind of sign off on what happened last weekend with Kilcoo and Ballygunner, because for Ballygunner, first of all, Meara Treasa, a Waterford team had never won the hurling All-Ireland. Ballyhale Shamrocks are going for 3 in a row. It was the last play of the game. Harry Ruddle, that solo, and then that shot with the puck into the corner of the net. It was a fairy tale. I haven't remembered that happening in a hurling match before in Gaelic games, maybe the 84 Cork Tipperary Munster final, but it was absolutely incredible.
It was magical if you're from Ballygunner. Probably less magical if you're one of the Shamrocks crew. But I think for the neutrals watching, I think they probably all were cheering on Ballygunner for those exact reasons that you've just outlined. But do you know, it's interesting watching the club championship this year, and actually some of the league games too, they've all kind of come down to those last few minutes and a last gasp play. Like, I'm thinking back even to the Dublin club hurling final where Kilmacud Crokes managed to steal into extra time just right on the cusp of the whistle nearly, and again with Ballygunner last week. It just goes to show that I think the quality of the game has improved, that the matchups are possibly getting more. I mean, we've had our washouts as well, obviously, as well. But it's so entertaining as that person watching, and you can feel the heart, you can feel the anticipation, the adrenaline, the intensity, the anxiety, the stress, the euphoria. It's amazing. And I remember being at one of those kind of talks that were given at the GAA coaching conference a few years ago, and forgive me now, I can't remember the person who gave the talk, but he was a psychologist, and he gave a talk called The Soul of Sport. And I thought it was fascinating the way he explained that as grown-ups, this is the only way we can let go of our emotions completely, be it joy, anger, devastation, and it's totally accepted, and you can run about and jump about like toddlers I saw here this morning running about in the snow. When you're a grown-up, you're not allowed to do that, and the club championship gives that to us. And it's interesting actually what you said as well about giving up the window to other sports, and I was totally in that camp as well, John. I totally believe that, like the GAA, I mean, I know from a player welfare point of view it made absolute sense, but as a fan I'm thinking, no, I want more and I want the season to go on for longer, until I saw like the viewership figures for TG CAD and RTE over the last season as well, and Air Sport when I used to work for them. People did and do tune into club games and league games, and we're getting them all year round now with the club, so we're possibly giving the GAA the platform that as a community game, it probably always needed. And we didn't give it to them. We were always focusing on the inter-county game, and which, as we know, like 99% of GAA members do not play county. And while it's the cream of the crop and it's amazing to watch, don't tell me that Ballygunner and Ballyhale Shamrocks last weekend wasn't entertaining, or Kilcoo and Crokes as well.
And the sportsmanship of Ballyhale Shamrocks pillar, the tweet congratulating Ballygunner. Look, it's easier when you've won more hurling titles than anybody else, but it would have been very painful for them. They were looking to make history. But it just showed that this is classy. This is classy stuff.
Yeah, look, there would be huge respect between teams. And look, when teams get to that stage of the competition, like, they really appreciate and know what each of them have put in. I was lucky enough to manage my own club, the Fianna, to an All-Ireland club final where Crossmaglen were too good for us on the day. And I know you were talking about attendances there, John, at the start, the introduction. Remember, certainly correct, 2000, there was 38,000 at the All-Ireland final on Paddy's Day that year. I think 17,000 last week. But I felt, look, it clashed in time-wise with the big rugby game as well. So, that would have taken an awful lot of neutrals that would have popped down to Croke Park for the club finals. They would have been quite happy to, stay at home or go to the pub and watch these games and be able to flip over from one to the other, where going head-to-head with, the biggest rugby international of the year, the Ireland-France game, it didn't help the attendance at all. And But I think, look, there is a huge market for it. And I'd agree with both of you. It was always kids go back to school, and there's always been school teachers involved in inter-county teams to get the All-Ireland finals, ex-school teachers involved or teachers involved in training and coaching these teams. And it has been a huge publicity venue for the GAA to have the All-Ireland final and, the first and third weeks in September, because the kids were back at school and everybody was able to get hyped about it, whatever two counties were involved in it. I think we have given away, it is going to be very, very hard to get used to All-Ireland finals. Bad enough last year in August, the year before in December, this year in July. So I think, we're giving away a lot of the year to as you say, look, soccer and rugby, and we just need to be careful because, everybody's hugely invested into the GAA at the moment, but look at the weather conditions in Ireland. Some of the games have to be called off tomorrow. The Sigerson being cramped in where it isn't ideal neither. So there's still some things that need to be fine-tuned, that we're not at the finished product. And just on the club scene, I'd be a little bit concerned that, particularly in the football, the hurling is holding up fine. My own club, the Fianna, got to the final. Mary was talking about it in relation to the fantastic finish that was there. There was a fantastic finish in the Fresher semi-final as well, Thursday night. So, but the football, in the club game, I think it's gone so negative. A lot of it is poor viewing, and that has transferred down, through the club scene. The Dublin Championship this year, it was a very negative championship with tight games, but teams prepared to hold onto the ball for long periods of time. So in terms of being a hugely enjoyable watch, I'd say, look, finishes are probably covering up for a lot of the play that wouldn't be as exciting as has gone in previous years. So that'd be just a little bit of concern that I would have going forward in relation to the actual viewing of the football side of things.
Okay, that's an interesting point, Pillar. On Kilcoo themselves, once again, a small parish in Down, 20 years ago, an intermediate club. Mickey Moran has travelled a long road, and remember, he was involved with Derry back in '93 in the backroom team there. It's some story for them.
That's it. Yeah, look, it's an incredible story, absolutely, and lots of little anecdotes has come out since the game, and how they pursued Mickey Morton and invited him up and met with him and basically coerced him into, taking on the challenge, and it finally delivered. And, a lovely little story that I loved that came out during the week was that, John Morrison was Mickey Morton's sidekick in most of his ventures over the years, and the 12th of February, the day of the All-Ireland final, was John Morrison's third year anniversary of passing away. And Kilcool were looking for a goalkeeping coach late last year, and John Morrison's son, Patrick, is a goalkeeping coach, and came up with the idea, and he came up and joined Mickey Morton's ticket and took on the role. And, there's a great picture produced there of John Morrison's son, Patrick, and Mickey Morton in the dresses of Croke Park with the All-Ireland trophy. So just a great little aside, and like, there's not a GA person in the country who wouldn't be happy for Mickey Morton, and the wonderful photograph that was produced of him kissing the ground from where the winning score was scored into the hill end. Just so fantastic. And, you know, Kilmacud will feel, you know, watching the game, that they left it behind them. But again, I thought they went into the shell. They tried to hold possession when they were well on top, instead of going and putting the foot on the throat, or the foot on Kilcool's throat, and really going hard to open the gap. And I probably looking back at it, a small little defensive thing was determining up the game. You know, when it looked like Craig Diaz was going to tap into an empty net, and Kilcool player managed to get back and get his hand to it, and, you know, the lead would have gone out to 9 or 10 points at that stage. It probably would have been too much for them. So just an incredible game, but the finish really was the beauty of it, not the game itself. The first half was very, very poor standard. Kilcool would have been, you know, you're shaking your head wondering how they got that far. But look, all the more pleasurable for them when they look back at it now and see the way they were able to turn it around and hang in there. And just one of the great GA stories. Absolutely.
Just before we move on from this pillar, what did Regional Club Final do for the area around Movie Road in North Dublin with Na Fianna? Is there a legacy to that?
Absolutely. You know, the new membership that we got, the interest that generated. You know, Na Fianna was a GA club in a parish, but the parish became Na Fianna, I would say, after that. You know, the number of tracksuits and jerseys that you'd see. Our nursery was always big, but it became huge in the aftermath of that. And just the general feel-good factor. That team, they were a great set of players, and they won 3 Dublin titles in a row. You know, the pity was that we couldn't have landed in All-Ireland. We were bet in 2 Leinster finals, either side of getting to that. For the next 2 Leinster finals, we were bet by you know, O'Hanlon's and Carlo bet us on an awful day the following year. And then the third year, Ratho bet them after a replay. I was gone that year. But, you know, to win 3 Dublin championships, we haven't been back there since. We've only won 1 Leinster title ever in our history. But they've a nice team brewing up there now, and they've an awful lot of young, talented players who played underage for Dublin. There's 7 of them actually on Desi Farrell's panel at the moment, so there's a lot of quality up there, and the club has grown from strength to strength as a result of it. And it still is a day of immense pride for everybody attached, albeit that it was a losing venture, but it still didn't take away from the fantastic journey we had that year.
Rugby wise, more Treasa, so Ireland, France, there's been a lot of debate and discussion, as you would get after a huge Six Nations match last weekend. At times I felt in the second half they were brilliant. Nothing wrong with saying that. Nothing wrong with saying that they didn't perform for 80 minutes. Nothing wrong with saying that they should have kicked for the corner in the last 8 minutes, because this is top-level sport. These are the elite margins. To me, it's about going and winning it and seizing it. Now, Ronan O'Gara disagreed in the Examiner. Brian O'Driscoll was a bit baffled by the call when he was on OTB during the week. Joey Carberry acquitted himself really, really well. Look, we'll beat Italy. We know that. I suppose Dan Sheehan will come in now, given Ronan Callagher's injured. We might see Robbie Henshaw, Ian Henderson, Robert Balakoon against Italy in Dublin next Sunday. Then we got Twickenham away, and then we have the venue for the England game, and then we've got Scotland at home between the 12th and 19th of March. What is your feeling around the rugby team after what you saw last Saturday?
To me, I would say I would be looking at that and I would be thinking green shoots. My worry is probably the wrong word, but for me, continually, for as long as I've watched Irish rugby, we peak at the wrong time. For me, winning the Six Nations is less important. We've won it. We've shown we can do it. Has this particular crop of players proven it? You could say some have, some haven't. To me, that's less important. To me, it's more important that Joey Carberry gets more time on the ball. It's more important he gets more time on the field. It's more important the younger players who are coming through get time. And it's also more important that I think I saw an interesting article, I think, written by Cian Treacy about kind of the Farrell approach, and the fact that he was saying, look, you can't try to out-physical France. It is a ridiculous manoeuvre and we need to get smarter about this. And I feel maybe that was the match smartness that the Ireland team were missing over the last few years. Like, we saw how when they were playing under Joe Schmidt, we were saying, look at the power of them. They're going through everyone. Literally, it was impossible to get past the Irish team. And they played that kind of destructive kind of game where it was going straight into combat all the time. And for various reasons, it didn't work out. So for me, I'd rather, and I hope the rugby is taking the more long-term view and thinking of the World Cup rather than the Six Nations. So to me, now I know there's plenty of people at home now screaming at the radio saying, what the hell does she know? She's talking rubbish. But in my own personal opinion, I'd rather we had a more long-term view of doing well in the Six Nations, perhaps not winning it. And really my head is thinking, who cares so long as we do well and represent ourselves well and go on and build and go beyond a World Cup quarter-final.
Pillar Caffrey, it could be a case of 18 months' time we meet France again at the World Cup. Look, we got a lot right last weekend and we scored 3 tries to 2. I think it is true to say that you're going to meet these powerful sides like South Africa and France extremely physically strong, and they're able to just replace their front 5 with almost like-minded replacements, and we don't have that luxury with Porter and Furlong staying for over 70 minutes on the pitch at the Stade de France. So we need to find a way around it, and I do think that's what Andy Farrell is trying to do. He's trying to find a way around it, and our attack is as exciting possibly as it has been for many years.
Yeah, and Ireland at the moment are a great watch. I would agree. With the comments that made that I think, look, the view has to be this tournament is this tournament. It should be about getting a deeper panel. Certainly Johnny Sexton, has been an unbelievable servant and is very important to the Ireland setup. But Johnny is 36, Joey Carberry is 26, and that was his first start in the Six Nations Championship last week. So, like, he has to be given game time to, get his own game management, get that experience. You presume he'll get the Italy game next week, and then we'll see what happens going forward for the last 2 games. But it has to be really about getting the depth of the panel, in a better shape. And look, we've underperformed at World Cups, and I would agree that, look, if we won this year's Six Nations, would it make it brilliant? Yeah, absolutely. But it's more important that, we've united 2023 in France and breaking that hoodoo of getting beyond a quarter-final in a World Cup, which, with the quality of players we have at the moment, we should be capable of doing, but unfortunately we haven't been so far. So a very exciting game last week. Again, look, a poor start that really left them, looking up at the scoreboard for a long time. And I think just the physicality that France brought to it and the up-in-your-face nature of them, their blitz defence, I think it probably did catch Ireland by surprise, even though it shouldn't have. And then, look, game management in all these games, decision-making when you're under pressure in the last few minutes, when it comes down to a game, it's these things. The more often you're in these situations, the better you get at making the correct decisions, and that's what it's all about. So look, I would hope to see Joey Carberry get more game time, and let's see that he is a starter, or we've no problem bringing him in for the World Cup next year. And let's just appreciate that. Look, Johnny Sexton, the age that he is, that he can't play every game, and we have to have a second starter in that position.
And his composure, Treasa, was probably the most illuminating aspect for Joey Carberry last week. Absolutely, and you don't learn that composure by going in and saying, oh, I'm going to be composed today. It doesn't work that way. You need game time, you need match time, you need to be challenged, you need to work hard, you need to miss a few occasions, and you need to do poorly a few times and learn from them. And he just hasn't had that opportunity with his kind of bad run of injuries. I mean, jeepers, has there been a more unlucky player in rugby who's time and time again, you think this is his time to shine, and then something happens and he's laid off again for another few weeks and months. So that kind of composure was even more impressive when you think of that he's been so hamstrung by so many different, I suppose, obstacles put in his way, and he was still able to keep the head. And that's not easy against France in any time, but against France in Paris is, pardon the pun, a different ball game altogether. So it goes to show the depth is there, the talent is there. He just needs the time to grow into it. And
Pillar's right. We can't be expecting Johnny Sexton to keep performing. He is at that age where I think nearly every game is a bonus for a lot of people at that age. He just seems to be superhuman. He's still going a bit like Tom Brady. But Tom Brady's time came to an end, and so will Johnny Sexton's. And we need a Joey Carberry, and we need another Joey Carberry coming up. And actually, we probably should have a third string Joey Carberry ready as well. And I'm not sure we're there yet, and that's what we need.
Well, maybe Jack Carty is making a claim for that at the moment, the way he's playing for Connacht, and look, it'd be good to see him involved in some way in the next 18 months as well in the number 10 position. I'm just going to throw this out there to you both without kind of any planning. Pillar, do you go to League of Ireland games? Are you more likely to go now after the pandemic?
Yeah, look, I was at home. It was one of the things that I was actually discussing with my lads at home, that we would have a big interest in the international soccer games. I've gone to a lot of the games over here in Spain, the underage games that they come over and play. I was watching the under-17s last week play here and keeping an eye on the talent coming through. And just discussing with my lads, we obviously live in Glasnevin, so look, Dalymount is on our doorstep, as is Tolka Park, and have a great neighbour across the road who's a long-time Shelbourne fan, and we have great conversations. So there would be a big interest in the area. A lot of Nafina kids would be Bohemian supporters and go up there regularly. And one of the things that has popped up is, look, there's a huge interest in the games now, but are the facilities there at the stadiums? And the two stadiums that I'm talking about, obviously Tolka Park, I see Shells are after putting in a bid now, or opening up the question of whether they can buy the venue and stay there. Dalymount Park is due to be knocked down and refurbished or whatever, but they have become dilapidated, the two of them, quite poor venues in terms of supporters visiting, the facilities, whether it be toilets. I know my lads were saying that even Shelbourne Park or Tolka Park yesterday, the 4,000 attendance, and there was no bar facilities available down there on the night, and things like that are just very, very poor. So I think the product is better now. There's a bigger interest in League of Ireland soccer than there ever was, and they just need to be careful that while that interest is there, that they should be in a position. If you compare Parnell Park, John, for example, as a venue to go and watch a game where 10,000 people can go in and get in quite comfortably and get out quite comfortably, and all sides of the ground is open to go, whether it's standing on the terrace or the one side that is fully standing in Parnell Park. There's a lovely atmosphere. You can get some hot food there. You can get drinks. You can, there's lots of parking around. There's easy access in and out. The same couldn't be said like for your visit to Dalymount or Tolka Park at the moment. And that's an issue because Bowes and Shelbourne would both get very big crowds for their home games. I think it was only €15 in last night to go down and see Shells playing, which is fantastic value on a Friday night in Dublin, to tip down and see quality football. So, it's a pity that the facilities aren't better at the moment to capitalise on what's happening and the interest with the young crowd in particular to go to these games.
Would you go to Galway United more, Treasa? And I'm kind of thinking, when I hear what Peter's saying, why can't we have municipal stadia in this country?
Oh, well, that's a bigger question, isn't it? Do you know what? Back in the day when I was much younger, Galway United seemed to have a much bigger hold on the community, and I use that in a positive term, than they do right now, even though it is growing again. Way back in the day when Don O'Riordan was in there, I do remember going to Galway United games as a child. And then whatever happened, I don't know if it was because the Galway team of '98 took us all on the Gaelic football lane then or what, I don't know, but it just kind of grew away from it, honestly. It had been, honestly, for years, if I hadn't been working at a League of Ireland game for, say, Off the Ball or somebody, I wasn't there. I wasn't going to them as a fan, but I think that's because I'm not from an area that had a team that you could connect with. But that being said, in the last year, I began presenting the Women's National League on TG Cahad, and it was eye-opening. It was so entertaining. We had so much fun doing it. The quality, like, they were great games to watch, and it goes to show the quality was there because so many of the women we saw last season are now gone off overseas playing for teams over in England and beyond. So it goes to show we have the talent. And I think, to be fair to the League of Ireland, they're understanding this and they're putting in huge efforts. We've seen the fairy tale stories of the Dundalks over the years. But like, for example, LOI TV are going to be showing all highlights from all games, all divisions, male and female, every Monday night between now and the end of the season. I know the women's don't start for another few weeks, but that's 6 p.m. every Monday. That's visibility they didn't have before. And to be fair, not really sure whose fault that is. Was it their own fault for not doing the promotion? Was it that we as broadcasters weren't understanding the product we had? Was it a mixture of both? Was it due to the facilities? Was it because our eyes were always looking at Man United, Liverpool, West Ham, Arsenal? Is that part of the problem? I think you could be a fan of Liverpool and Shelburne. I don't see why it has to be one or the other. And as Pillar was saying, like, if you live in Dublin, the prospect of a Friday night banger derby to go down, have a few drinks, have your warm tea, go and then go to the pub afterwards for dinner or have a meal beforehand or whatever. There's a great appeal to something you can just walk up in. It's a community thing. I think they're getting there. They're not fully there yet, but for me, especially after what I saw last year in the Women's National League, and it came down to a cliffhanger right at the end where we thought Peamount would win, the trophy had to be zoomed in a car across town into Shelburne in the end because they're the ones who won it. It was just magical, and that's only going to improve. We have a better calibre of players now. I know this weekend wouldn't be the weekend you'd say you'd think quality because of the weather and the condition of the pitches, but like, we've got better players playing now. They're technical, they're younger. It's a different demographic of player playing. And I think the demographic of people watching is changing as well, which is all good. But they do need to become more proactive. They need to kind of shove it in our faces a bit more and tell us, come here, this is why. And I think LOI TV is a great start.
Yeah, I think that we saw with Bohemians playing matches in Dublin in the summer, the interest there was. The FAI Cup final had a record attendance, the biggest attendance since 1968. Talca Park was a sellout last night. Bohemians games at Deddyman Park are regularly sold out. And I think at the moment the clubs are doing everything they can. I just think the facilities, as Peter said, are definitely a challenge. And it's a case of, I think, for Irish football and for the government or for the FAI, the most important thing from Monday morning until Sunday night is the facilities, both for the players, the actors themselves, but also for the supporters, because you're looking at it as a different world. But you're looking at the Super Bowl last week, and if you've been at the Super Bowl in Los Angeles and seen that halftime show, the experience is a huge part of what being a supporter is about. The football, as I agree with you, Treasa, I think has never been as good in recent years. The fact that, you can't have players now leaving until 18 because of Brexit. Look at the amount of players being snapped up in the English League and in Scotland recently from the League of Ireland, and we'll talk about it between 3 and 5 with Dan and Johnny. But there's a grand swell of enthusiasm with Damien Duff being in the sideline there at Talca Park last night, and it's just a case of, can we get a better situation when it comes to the product in terms of the infrastructure around it? There's no shortage of money in golf at the moment, folks. I don't know if you've any interest in this kind of row or not, what could be a row in the future, but this tug of war between a potential breakaway league involving Saudi Arabian funds versus the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour. I think golfers already are extremely wealthy. What do they want to be? Do they want to be athletes that compete for the biggest prizes in the game and remember that sport is meant to be competitive, or do they just want more houses, 3 to 5 houses for their kids? Like, how much money is enough money? And I kind of see that the Saudi League, the proposal, whether it gets off the ground or not, just seems completely soulless and depressing to me. Now, to be fair to all the top players, they were great this week. Rory McIlroy, John Rahm, Colin Morikawa coming out against this concept that to me doesn't really have any meaning. I'm looking at the Genesis Invitational leaderboard at halfway, where the top 10 players in the world are Joaquin Niemann, who leads, is 32nd in the world. The guy Cameron Young is second, was on a sponsor's invite. So anything can happen. It's extremely exciting. Do you have any view on this more, Treasa, the Saudi shilling?
I don't like it. I don't. It makes me very uncomfortable for lots of reasons. And the big one is, well, we know Saudi Arabia's record in human rights and rights for women. In fact, anyone who isn't one of the people in charge in that country, to be honest. But as well as that, yeah, like you said, I mean, how much money is enough money? Like, I don't know. I'm not rich, but I'm assuming you get to a point in life where, you have enough money to live, you're comfortable, you don't have to worry about spending, you can buy your houses, you can go on your holidays, you don't have to work except show up to a tournament whenever you feel like it. Like, what do they need that extra money for? Is it enough to step over that threshold of, really, once you go to Saudi Arabia, you are condoning, I don't care what anybody says, you are condoning how they treat people and how they live. But on the other hand, is that very different to Newcastle? Is it very different to Man City? What's the difference? I don't know. And at what stage do we decide, oh, we can't morally go to Saudi Arabia, but I'll go over to the Emirates over the weekend. That'll be grand. So where do we draw the line? And that's something I don't know. But for me, Saudi is very easy to draw the line to, because it's not a country I'm going to go to. It's not a place that's high on the holiday list. It's not a glamour destination. So it's very easy for me to say, no, I don't like it. But, who am I to be why would I say that Saudi Arabia is not okay, but going to support Man City is, as just an example,
Just before we go, because we're running out of time, Pillar, I just want to read out a bit of Philly McMahon, who was in the Irish Independent today, speaking about Dublin and Mayo. At half-time of the 2020 All-Ireland final, we're going down the tunnel at the same time as the Mayo players, one of whom was Cillian O'Connor. He just missed a free and ever the opportunist. I reminded him about it as he walked by. Within 2 seconds, I had three of them on top of me, raring to go, frothing at the mouth. I petered out in a couple of seconds, but they were raging. Childish, maybe, but there was a method to it. They went off to cool down while I went into our dressing room. Delighted myself, I had three of them out of their zone, thinking about me instead of something actually important. We knew exactly, this is another part of the article, what our values were, because when we looked to the sideline or back at the goalmouth, we saw the people who epitomised what we did. I never got the same feeling from Mayo. Don't get me wrong, they have some brilliant players, guys who've stood up and produced stunning performances in big games, but I'm not sure who their chiefs are. You can never really tell what goes on inside another team's camp, but you sense things. I always felt that we'd stronger leaders in Mayo and a better environment, says Philly McMahon in the Irish Independent today. They play this evening in the league, Pillar. Will that be on the Mayo dressing room wall?
Well, look, there's Philly retired and he's still stirring it. Even at club level in Dublin, he was the player that the opposition loved to hate, and some of the things, Philly was an enforcer on the pitch for Ballygunner Kickham's and for Dublin, and he's still enforcing off the pitch now, and his articles, quite a provocative article in ways. He's speaking from, I suppose, the moral high ground in terms of, look, it has been a great rivalry, Dublin Mayo, for the last 10 years, but only from a Dublin perspective, because if you keep beating the team year in, year out, it's not a real rivalry. Mayo will feel that, look, last year, maybe this is a turning point. We know Dublin are in a period of rebuilding now. I'm sure Mayo will be very anxious to stick it into Dublin tonight and to put more pressure on Dublin as a squad in terms of the rebuild that's going on, that has to go on. But, I don't know how much teams, read into these things the day of a match or whatever, but it was quite a hard-hitting article in ways, because there's been so little between the teams. But unfortunately, no more than Dublin Kerry for a long number of years. The Kerry people said it was a great rivalry. It was a brilliant rivalry for them. It was horrible for us subs because we couldn't get the better of them. And while we joke and laugh about it and all that, it's the same with Mayo. They had so many games where, the one decision here or there, and they could have gotten over the line and winning an All-Ireland and beating Dublin. And, I was at that semi-final last year, and to see, grown Mayo men in tears at the end of the game, having beaten Dublin after extra time. And, I left the stadium knowing, like, Mayo were so bad the first half of that game that they were very far away from winning an All-Ireland, leaving that stadium that evening. But they felt, having bet the Dubs at long last, like it was, I think, 2012 since the last bet them, that it was going to be their year. And then looked, Tyrone came up with a performance in an All-Ireland final that annoyed them once again. So, there's huge hurt there. And like, Mayo is that story that we're waiting for the GA to happen and to relieve them of that burden. Of the big long gap since the last All-Ireland win. But as long as it's there, there'll be people that'll be making hay of it and giving the reasons why it hasn't happened. So I would think tonight is another stepping stone for Mayo to actually go and beat the Dubs in Croke Park and feel good about themselves.
Okay, Meara, Treasa, just briefly.
Well, I enjoyed the article the same way I enjoyed David Hickey's article a few years ago. I love the stirring. We don't see enough of it. That kind of trash talk, give me more. I don't care what team is involved. It was just so good to read it and be going, oh, what a burn, what an excellent burn. And I hope somebody else comes out next week and does the same in hurling or another team in football. It is fantastic. Give us more Philly. Hook it into my veins. Loving it.
Fair enough. Meara, Treasa, Nicali, Pillar Caffrey, thanks so much.